The alarm shrieked through Kepler station's corridors at 0847 Standard Time, and Operations Manager Vexthal felt his 3 hearts skip in synchronized terror. Reactor containment failure. Level 7 cascade detected. All personnel evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. The voice of the station's artificial intelligence was calm, which somehow made it worse. Vextal's mandibles clicked rapidly as he pulled up the diagnostic screen with trembling manipulator arms. The numbers painted a picture of inevitable catastrophe. The primary fusion core's magnetic containment was degrading at an exponential rate. Secondary systems were already offline. Tertiary backups were showing critical stress fractures. He had seen this scenario in training simulations. Every spacefaring species had. There was only one protocol: evacuate and let the reactor breach in controlled collapse. The station would be lost, but lives would be saved. "All hands, this is Operations," Vextal announced, his voice translator rendering his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. "Execute evacuation protocol Omega-7. Proceed to emergency craft in orderly fashion. We have approximately 43 minutes before containment is lost." The corridor outside his office erupted into controlled chaos. The Xanthari flowed past like liquid mercury, their collective consciousness already coordinating their evacuation. The Krevtok lumbered toward the docking bays, their heavy exoskeletons clanking against the deck plating. The avian Pirthi took flight, their wings barely clearing the ceiling as they soared toward their designated escape pods. Vexthal gathered his personal effects, a photocrystal of his brood cluster, his certification medals, and sealed them in an emergency container. 40 years he had managed this station. 40 years of maintaining the delicate balance between dozens of species, hundreds of personalities, thousands of regulations. Now, it would all die in fire and radiation. He made his way to the command deck one final time. The massive view screen showed the evacuation in progress. 73 vessels, from single-person pods to massive colony transports, were disengaging from the station's docking arms. The coordination was beautiful, really. A testament to Galactic Council safety protocols developed over millennia. "Sir, we have a problem." Vextal turned to find his second-in-command, a Varelian named Kithrex, still at his post. "Why are you not evacuating?" "The humans, sir. They're not responding to the evacuation order." A cold weight settled in Vextal's primary stomach. "Where are they?" "Engineering Deck 7. The reactor level." Of course. Of course the humans were still there. In his 3 years working with the human engineering team, Vextal had learned that they possessed a unique and often disturbing approach to crisis management. Where other species saw protocols and procedures, humans saw suggestions and possibilities. "Contact them immediately." Kithrex's tentacles danced across the communication console. "Channel open, sir." Human Engineering Team Leader Rodriguez, this is Operations Manager Vextal. "You must evacuate immediately. The reactor containment will fail in 39 minutes. There was a pause, filled with the sound of what Vextal had learned to recognize as human music, something loud and rhythmic, with incomprehensible vocalizations. Then a voice responded, and Vextal could hear the smile in it. "Hey, Vex. Yeah, we got the alert. We're good down here." "You are not good. The radiation levels in that section are already approaching lethal thresholds for most species. You must leave." "Most species, sure. But check our exposure limits. We've got time." Vextal pulled up the human biological specifications. His mandibles went slack. The humans could survive radiation levels that would have already killed him twice over. And they were apparently unconcerned about the ambient temperature, which had risen to 48 degrees Celsius. Even if you survive the radiation, the reactor will breach. The explosion will destroy the station. Well, that's why we're gonna fix it. Vextal felt his sanity slipping. The containment failure is catastrophic. The simulation models show no possible recovery scenario. Yeah, we saw those models. Pretty pessimistic, honestly. Listen, we think we can jury-rig a bypass using the secondary plasma conduits. We just need to reroute the coolant flow and reinforce the magnetic field generators with some of the spare parts from the salvage bay. That is impossible. The systems are not compatible. They are if you make them compatible. Look, we've done this kind of thing before. Remember when the waste recycling system failed last year? Vextal did remember. The humans had fixed it using what they called duct tape, wire, and a power coupling from a beverage dispenser. The council engineers had been horrified when they reviewed the repair logs. It had violated at least 47 safety regulations. It had also worked perfectly. This is a fusion reactor, not a waste recycler. Sure, but the principle is the same. You've got a system that's failing, and you've got other systems that work. You just need to connect them in creative ways. Vextal, sir, Kithrex interrupted. We have 37 minutes remaining. We should evacuate. The Varelian was right. Vextal should leave. He should let the station die. He should follow protocol. But something stopped him. Perhaps it was the casual confidence in Rodriguez's voice. Perhaps it was the memory of all the impossible things he had seen humans accomplish. Perhaps it was simple denial. What do you need? He asked. Just keep the station powered long enough for us to work, and maybe keep everyone away. If this goes wrong, well, better if it's just us down here. Vextal made a decision that would probably end his career if he survived. Kithrex, go. Take the last evacuation shuttle. I am staying. Sir, that is an order. Go. Someone needs to be able to testify that I made this choice of my own free will. The Varelian hesitated, then fled. Vextal watched the last shuttle detach from the station. He was alone now, alone with 6 humans and a dying reactor. He pulled up the engineering deck's visual feed. The reactor chamber was a nightmare of flashing red lights and venting steam. The containment sphere, normally a perfect mirror-bright surface, was developing dark stress fractures. The air shimmered with heat. In the middle of this hell, 6 humans worked. They wore their standard engineering jumpsuits, stained with grease and marked with incomprehensible human symbols. They had pulled on respirator masks, but otherwise seemed unconcerned about the environment that should have been killing them. Rodriguez, a tall female with hair bound back, in a practical style, was directing the others with quick gestures. Chen, I need you on the coolant manifold. Reroute everything from sectors 4 through 9 into the primary loop. A shorter human, Chen, nodded and disappeared into a maintenance tunnel that was glowing red-hot. Vextal felt ill watching it. Kowalski, O'Brien, get those spare mag field generators from storage. We need to boost the containment field strength by at least 30%. 2 humans jogged off, moving with a speed and endurance that seemed impossible given the heat and thin atmosphere. Adeyemi, how's the bypass looking? A dark-skinned human who was elbow-deep in a plasma conduit looked up. Like shit, boss. These couplings were never meant to handle this kind of throughput. But I think if we reinforce them with the structural supports from the old observation deck, we might get enough integrity to hold. Do it. Larson, help her. On it. Vextal watched in horrified fascination as the humans tore apart multiple systems, combining components in ways that made no engineering sense. They used crude welding tools that sparked dangerously near exposed plasma feeds. They rerouted power through circuits that were never designed to carry such loads. They secured critical connections with adhesive tape and wire. It was insane. It was beautiful. It was utterly human. "Vex, you still watching?" Rodriguez called out, looking up at a camera. "Yes, I am here." "Good. We're gonna need you to do something in about 5 minutes. We need a cold shutdown of the backup power grid. Then a restart 30 seconds later. Can you do that from operations?" "Yes, but that will cause a complete blackout. Life support will fail." "Just for 30 seconds. We can hold our breath that long." Of course they could. Vextal had seen the human lung capacity specifications. They could survive without air for several minutes. It was absurd. "I will do it." 28 minutes remaining. The containment field was at 14% and dropping. Vextal watched Chen emerge from the maintenance tunnel. Her face flushed red from the heat, sweat pouring down her skin. She gave Rodriguez a thumbs-up gesture, another incomprehensible human signal that apparently meant success. 22 minutes. Kowalski and O'Brien returned, dragging 2 massive magnetic field generators that probably weighed more than Vextal's entire body. The humans lifted them like they were empty cargo containers. 18 minutes. Adeyemi and Larson finished the bypass. The connection looked like something from a salvage yard. All mismatched parts and improvised supports. It shouldn't work. It couldn't work. "Okay, Vex. We're ready," Rodriguez said. "Kill the power on my mark." "Wait. What is your probability of success?" Rodriguez wiped sweat from her forehead and grinned up at the camera. "No idea. 50-50? Could go either way." "That is not acceptable odds. It's better than 0, which is what we had 5 minutes ago. Ready? 3, 2, 1, mark." Vextal hit the emergency shutdown. The station plunged into darkness. His display screens went black. The gentle hum of life support died. In the sudden silence, he could hear his 3 hearts hammering. He counted. 1, 2, 3. In the reactor chamber, invisible to him now, the humans were working in total darkness. They had planned for this. They had timed their movements. They were making final connections, securing emergency power feeds, rerouting the last crucial systems. 20 seconds, 25, 30. Vextal restarted the power grid. The lights flickered back on. His screens came alive. The reactor containment field jumped from 11% to 63%. The temperature began dropping. The stress fractures in the containment sphere stopped spreading. "Hot damn, it worked." That was O'Brien's voice, filled with surprised delight, as if he hadn't actually expected to survive. "Of course it worked," Rodriguez said, though she sounded equally surprised. "Everybody okay? Chen, you good?" "Good. Little crispy, but good." "Adeyemi?" "Present and accounted for." "Kowalski, O'Brien, Larson?" "Here." "Yeah, I'm good. Still alive." Vextal stared at his screens. The reactor was stabilizing. It was actually stabilizing. The humans had taken a catastrophic failure, one that every simulation had declared irreparable, and fixed it, with spare parts and tape and impossible determination. "Rodriguez," he said, his voice translator probably not adequately conveying his shock. "The reactor is stable." "Yep. I mean, it's not pretty. Council inspectors are gonna have a heart attack when they see our wiring. But it'll hold until a proper repair can be scheduled." "You saved the station." "Well, yeah. I mean, we work here. Can't just let it blow up. Can't just let it blow up." As if it were that simple. As if 40 years of construction, trillions of credits worth of equipment, and hundreds of lives worth of memories could be saved with improvisation and refuel to give up. "I need to contact the evacuation fleet," Vextal said, still dazed. I need to tell them it's safe to return. Cool. Hey, Vexed. Any chance you could send someone down with some water? It's pretty warm down here. Pretty warm. The temperature in the reactor chamber was still over 40 degrees Celsius. The humans were standing in radiation that would have killed most species within minutes. They had just prevented a catastrophic explosion through means that violated every engineering principle Vexthal had ever learned, and they wanted water. I will bring it myself, Vexthal said. He found them 20 minutes later, sitting on the deck plating outside the reactor chamber, passing around bottles of water and something called protein bars. They looked exhausted, their hair plastered to their heads with sweat, their jumpsuits soaked through. Chen had a nasty burn on her arm that she seemed to be ignoring. Adeyemi was bleeding from a cut on her forehead. They were laughing. Hey, Vex, Rodriguez said, accepting a water bottle. Thanks. You are welcome. Vextal looked at the 6 humans. I do not understand your species. Yeah, we get that a lot. The rational action was to evacuate, to accept the loss, to follow protocol. Rodriguez shrugged. Maybe. But here's the thing about protocols. They're written by people who are thinking about the worst-case scenario. They're designed to keep everyone safe by assuming nothing can be fixed. And sure, most of the time, they're probably right. But not today. Not today. Today we had a problem. We had tools. And we had time. So we fixed it. You could have died. Could have, O'Brien agreed, taking a long drink of water. But we didn't. And now, everyone's got a station to come home to. Vextal sat down on the deck plating, his legs folding beneath him in a gesture of exhaustion. The council will demand an investigation. There will be inquiries. Your methods violated numerous regulations. Oh, for sure, Rodriguez said. The paperwork is gonna suck. But the station's still here. So I figure that's a win. The evacuation fleet began returning 2 hours later. Vextal watched the ship's dock, watched the returning crew members stare in disbelief at the still-functioning station. The Zenthari Collective had to recalibrate their entire worldview. The Krevtok elders demanded to know what ancient technology had been employed. The Pirthi simply refused to believe it hadn't been a drill. When Rodriguez submitted her incident report, it was 17 pages long and included detailed schematics of the repairs. The council engineers who reviewed it sent back a 63-page response that could be summarized as, "This shouldn't have worked. This can't work. But it's clearly working, and we don't know what to do with this information." 3 weeks later, a formal council inspection team arrived. They spent 4 days examining the reactor repairs. They tested every connection, measured every power flow, analyzed every improvised component. Their final report concluded that the repairs were unorthodox, technically non-compliant, with 17 major regulatory frameworks, but functionally sound and potentially more efficient than the original configuration. They also recommended that all council stations carry supplies of something called duct tape and maintain a human engineering team for emergency situations. Vextal read the report in his office, then looked out at the bustling station concourse. Life had returned to normal. The Zenthari were flowing through their daily routines. The Krevtok were conducting their meditation rituals. The Pirthi were singing their morning harmonies. And in Engineering Deck 7, 6 humans were probably figuring out creative ways to violate more regulations. He pulled up the communication channel. Rodriguez, this is Vextal. Hey, boss. What's up? I wanted to thank you, officially. You and your team saved this station, and everyone on it. There was a pause. Just doing our jobs, Vex. No. You did far more than your jobs. You did the impossible. Another pause. Then, nah. We just did what needed doing. That's kind of the human way, you know. See a problem, fix it, even if everyone else says you can't. Vextal clicked his mandibles in his species equivalent of a laugh. I am beginning to understand that about your people. Good. Hey, since you're on the line, you should probably know that we noticed some stress fractures in the primary docking clamp system. Nothing urgent, but we should probably reinforce them before they become a problem. Do you have a plan? Always? It's going to involve some spare parts from the cargo bay and possibly a welding torch, definitely non-regulation compliant. Will it work? Probably. Vextal looked at his personal terminal, at the emergency protocols he had spent 40 years following without question. Then he closed the file. Proceed, he said. And Rodriguez, if you need any supplies, let me know. I believe we recently requisitioned a large supply of duct tape. He could hear the grin in her voice. Now, you're thinking like a human, Vex. Perhaps, Vextal thought, as he closed the channel. That wasn't such a terrible thing. Outside his window, Kepler's station hung against the stars, alive and thriving. A monument to protocols and regulations, saved by improvisation and stubborn refusal to give up. A Galactic Council facility, rescued by humans who looked at the impossible and said, probably fixable. Vextal pulled up the next week's maintenance schedule. He had a feeling he would need to start expecting the unexpected. With humans around, the impossible was just another item on the to-do list, and somehow that made him feel safer than any protocol ever had.
Claim your seat at the apex.